What's going on, beautiful people of Piston basketball fandom? I'm your host, Mike, with the Piston basketball exclusive. In today's news shot, we have a ton of news to go over from about for about 2 weeks. We've had one transaction after another transaction, after another hiring, after another firing, and on and on. All the way from the holiday week leading up until this week, which includes Cade finally signing his contract extension and the Pistons solidifying their front court with Paul Reed. Now, last week over the holiday, the Pistons made some big changes, hiring JB Bickerstaff as your new head coach. We brought back fan favorite Tobias Harris to a large monetary contract, but a short-term deal via free agency. Quentin Grimes was moved on out of here and swapped out for Tim Hardaway Jr. and several second-round draft picks from the Dallas Mavericks. What's all this mean? What's all this about? What is the meaning of life? I'll tell you what it means. It means if you don't comment on this video, you won't have a shot at winning a copy of the new NCAA Football 2025. What? Oh man, that that transition was so smooth. Ooh, brought a shiver down my spine. But as you know, and I know, we all know, we have one giveaway for our Facebook community, one giveaway for our YouTube community. On the YouTube side of things, all you need to be is a subscriber to this channel, like this video, and comment on it. On the Facebook side, you'll need to follow this page, be a member of the group, like and comment on the video. Now, the number of times you comment is the number of times you're entered in to win. And gosh darn it, we're only 7 days away. Game comes out July 19th, 2024. Comment now. Be active. Don't miss out. You get a free copy. What up? System of choice, by the way. All right, y'all. Enough goofing around. On to the video. Alright. In all seriousness, can we get a hand clap for this man right here? For this guy right here? I'm just gonna give him a little applause. Yeah. Alright, Trajan. Woo! Man, he's been on fire. On fire! Trajan, I mean, what more can you say? He's building a complete basketball team. I mean, it's looking more complete as the days, the short few weeks he's been at it. It's coming together. It's looking more complete, more well-rounded. Does that mean, don't take it wrong, does that mean we're going to win a championship or competing for a championship? No, nothing like that. But in the last 3 to 4 years, we haven't looked like a complete basketball team. We've had redundant pieces that don't work, pieces that look like they can't play at this level. It's just been a hodgepodge of garbage over the last 4 years. And, you know, with Trajan, it's looking like the pieces he's bringing in are logical set pieces that look like, on paper, that can work together and actually win some games. And that's meaningful. It's a good step in the right directions. So these last couple weeks haven't been easy. I've made it a point of emphasis over the last couple videos, especially in the month of June, that he had a lot to get done in a short period of time. And it was critical he make the right decisions. Because the moves he makes right now will impact his tenure moving forward. And I can already hear the naysayers. I can already hear the haters. There's a lot of them out there saying, man, what are you talking about? He's just been on the job his first year. Tenure moving forward, he could be here 10 years. You're saying the moves he makes right now are going to still impact him? Yes. You can get real clear-cut examples of that just looking at Troy Weaver, our last GM. People are still... He was only on the job for like 2 months, maybe 3 months when he drafted Killian Hayes, and people are still ragging on him after he's gone. 4 years later, they're both gone, and people are still ragging on him for that. Yes, these moves matter. And yes, whether he nails a move this early or is a complete screw up this early, people will bring it up and use it against him. We've seen it. I mean, hell, Joe Dumars drafted Darko Milicic back in 2003. Dumars was with the organization up until 2013, and people were still nailing him to a cross. We're here 20 years later, 2024, and you still people say Joe Dumars is the worst GM because he drafted Darko Milicic. Yes, you will hear it. So what I'm saying is that, yes, these moves do matter. And I'm not saying, again, let's rewind. I'm applauding him. I'm saying, dude, good job, Trajan. And it comes off a little, like I'm saying it and it feels like it's a little sarcastic. It's not. I'm being genuine. He's done a good job thus far. With that, it's a damn shame that he was put in this situation to begin with. He was in such a serious time crunch. He had a lot to get done in a short period of time. And in my opinion, just with the time crunch, it's been very good. Overall, let's take away the time crunch. It's been decent, but good. It's been a decent and good job. With the time crunch added in there, that aspect to it, very good. He's got a lot done in a matter of like 3 weeks. So I'm very pleased with that. It's not been perfect, but it's been good. On paper, we actually look like we have a basketball team, which is on the positive side of the decision making. So, with that said, a quick rundown of what's gone on over the last 2 weeks. First and foremost, we have J.B. Bickerstaff. He was hired by your Detroit Pistons on June the 30th. So about 12 days ago or so. He's agreed to a 5-year deal with the team, with the 5th year being a team option. No money on this deal has been disclosed on this current deal. But I think it's probably a lot less than the $78.5 million that we gave to Money Monte Williams. I'm assuming it's a lot less. And the fact that the 5th year is a team option indicates that the Pistons were probably in the driver's seat on this deal, which is good, hopefully. Just because, you know, I think JB is like a high B tier coach in the NBA right now. And to really set the parameters around that deal makes it to the point that it seems like the Pistons got what they wanted out of this hire. And obviously, it sounds like JB accepted it, so he got what he wanted out of this hire. So I think it comes off as a win-win. Let's put it that way. It doesn't seem like the Pistons are bending over backwards for him to be here, like Monte Williams or even Stan Van Gundy, because the Pistons and Tom Gores really bent over backwards to get him here. So it feels like a win-win, and I think, and he also had a presser a day ago or so, and it sounds like he wants to be here. He sounds hungry. So I'm happy about that. Hopefully he's a keeper. With that, Bickerstaff has taken some criticisms for developing talent. His guards, criticism about the underdevelopment that they took. Again, it could be all opinion, because when you look at it, you really can't argue with the results. The results are undeniable of what he's done there. He took over a team that had only 19 wins from John Beilein, who is a now current Piston executive. He's led that exact team 2 years later to 44 wins, 51 wins in year 3, and lost a few more games in year 4 with 48 wins, but took him to a second round appearance in that year 4. Now, Tom Gores takes a ton of criticism for his overall ownership, as he should. But he's gone after the best coaches in the coaching pool in each year. We've already mentioned Stan Van Gundy, Monte Williams. Speaking of Stan Van Gundy, only a few years prior, he was in the NBA Finals coaching the Orlando Magic. Tom Gores hired him hot off that appearance. Granted, it was a few years later, but Stan Van Gundy had his credentials. He was a proven coach. After the Stan Van Gundy experiment, we went after Dwayne Casey, who was not a few years later, literally the year after winning Coach of the Year with the Toronto Raptors. He was fired, and then we brought him on to be our coach. That obviously didn't work out. And then in a similar situation, we obviously had Monte Williams, who also was coming off of a Coach of the Year performance the year prior to being a Detroit Piston. And he was also fired by the Phoenix Suns. Very similar to Dwayne Casey, but Dwayne Casey didn't get the kind of money that Money Monte got. But with all that said, Tom Gores has been hiring qualified candidates. We bring this up because JB Bickerstaff has already gotten criticisms on his way to being hired as the Pistons' next coach. It's at that point, at some point, we're going to have to look at ourselves in the mirror and ask, is this just a coaching problem, or are we just a coaching graveyard? And judging by how this team has been run, we just may be a graveyard in general. There's really nowhere you can go from here. You're just going to keep hiring one qualified coach after another qualified coach. This isn't the Lawrence Franks of the world, the John Custers of the world, the Michael Currys of the world. You know, these are actually qualified candidates, and none of them can get the job done here. At some point, you know, we're going to have to look at JB Bickerstaff, or just whoever's our coach long term. I'm hoping it's JB. I really hope the buck stops here. And just ask, when are we going to stop recycling through coaches? So, with that said, I welcome JB Bickerstaff with open arms. I'm hoping everything works out here with him. I'm hoping we don't have to go through another coaching hire for several years down the road. I mean, 2020, 2040, 2050, 2070. I really don't want to do another coaching search. We got to get a guy and stick with him. And I'm hoping JB's that guy. Now, with that said, his job here is going to be really simple. Simple, right? But it's going to be a lot of work. Don't get me wrong. But it's simple. He's going to have to figure out the pieces that we give him. How are they going to be able to work with Cade? And then the next piece is developing all the young talent that we're giving him. And I really hope he's able to knock both of them out the park. If he's able to knock both those out the park, he could be our coach for the foreseeable future. Obviously, you want to win, right? But I think figuring out, tapping into Cade's full potential, figuring out what pieces work around him, and then developing the young players around him, the winning's going to naturally come if you figure those things out. Speaking of those pieces, Tim Hardaway Jr., the son of the Killer Cross, was traded here on June 28th, but that deal wasn't finalized until July 6th. With Hardaway came 3 second-round picks, 1 the next year, and 2 in 2028. Now, the Pistons lose a potential 3D player in Quentin Grimes, but we gain Tim Hardaway. Tim Hardaway, he's been a perennial Sixth Man of the Year candidate for a number of years for many different teams around the NBA. He was putting up productive numbers for Dallas during most of his time there. A couple of injuries during the course of last season really took him out of the lineup, and he never quite got back in Dallas's rotation, even during their run to the finals, which was their best season they've had since 2011. And for a guy that was a wouldn't call him a super six man, but was a good six man, I would say. And they really didn't need him to go to the NBA Finals. And he's getting paid $15 million a year. Really shows you what Dallas felt about him and getting rid of him. With that, us taking on Tim Hardaway took on a little bit of criticisms. Because one, we don't know if he's going to be able to come back healthy. Even though, for the most part of his career, he's been a healthy individual up until about 8 months ago. And we settled on 3 second-round picks. Which, if the reports are accurate, the Pistons were originally trying to get a first rounder out of them and end up settling for those second-round picks. Now, if Tim Hardaway can come back healthy and give us a year or two of production, by the way, he is on an expiring contract, so this may be the only year he's with us. But let's say we sign him to a short 2-year deal after this. If everything goes good, this could be one hell of a trade for us. He is a scoring punch off the bench. And in certain situations, he can plug and play right into the starting lineup. In a pinch or in certain situations. So I personally like this trade, but reading that the fact that we could have had a first rounder out of it makes me feel, yeah, maybe we got a little ripped off there a little bit. But then again, you're talking about the Dallas Mavericks, who everybody assumes will be competing for another championship in the coming years. So if that's the case, then that first round pick that we didn't get may just be a glorified first round pick, because if Dallas is intending to go back to the finals again in the coming years, then you're really just dealing with a very, very late first rounder, which those end up looking like second round picks anyway. So that's what we got with Tim Hardaway. The next piece on the docket would be fan favorite Tobias Harris. He's back. He signed for $52 million over 2 years out of free agency. 6 years ago, he was shipped out of here. This is his second stint for the famous trade for Blake Griffin. In that time period, he started for both the LA Clippers and the Philadelphia 76ers. With the 76ers, he was part of a perennial contender in the East during his 5-year run with them. Personally, not the biggest fan of how much we paid him, knowing not many teams out there had that much cap to spend. However, again, I said that Trajan's offseason has been good, hasn't been perfect. Nothing's ever perfect. If it was perfect, we'd be winning championships. With that said, however, the move definitely upgrades the Pistons along the perimeter and in the front court, as Tobias tends to be a tweener at the forward. Plays both small forward and power forward. It also allows the Pistons to get a little closer to the league's minimum in spending and cap. As to prior to this move, the Pistons didn't look like they were anywhere close to spend that much cap. And as the free agency period has moved forward, it doesn't look like there's that many options out there to spend on to meet the league's minimum. So that's where paying Tobias, I think, has been beneficial to the Pistons, is that it allows them to meet that cap requirement that all NBA teams have to meet. Now, on to the next guy. Simone Fontecchio. He signed a 2-year deal at $16 million over those 2 years. Not necessarily the most groundbreaking news, but it was necessary, because Fontecchio is a guy that brings good production. Whenever he's on the floor, he flies under the radar around the league, which is why we brought him back on such a bargain. Now, on Tuesday, we've seen two big moves. The signing of Cade Cunningham and Paul Reed. Again, gonna go back to this guy here. That guy. Right here. Mr. Trajan Langdon. Gotta give him applaud. Again, I'm doing this and it feels like I'm being sarcastic. To me, I feel like I'm being sarcastic, but it's genuine. I'm being genuine. When I first talked about his hiring, I said getting Cade locked up long term should be priority number one this offseason. No one was really talking about it. And Trajan did just that. He jumped on it immediately. And honestly, I believe this is something that Troy Weaver would have dragged his feet on. For as much as I've defended Troy Weaver here and there, I really feel like Troy would have held out on this until next offseason, which I don't think would have been the right move. Now the only concern that we have with Cade Cunningham is making sure he stays healthy and we're putting the right pieces around him. Those are the two main concerns we have with Cade right now. So, providing both those two happen, I really think you'll start seeing the Pistons improve in tremendous ways. Next up, also on Tuesday, Paul Reed was picked up off of waivers, which means I believe the Pistons are picking up his old contract from the 76ers, which he was in the middle of a 3-year contract with, worth $24 million over those 3 years, which translates to around $7 to $8 million per year. As a starter, Paul Reed was averaging 10.3 points per game, 7.6 rebounds per game, 1.3 blocks per game, 1.8 assists per game. It's for a center, people. And just under a steal a game in 24 games that he started. Now, immediately, Piston fans started clamoring about it being a sign that Isaiah Stewart would be getting traded. And not just be getting traded, but getting traded for Brandon Ingram. Man, I mean, not only were people excited that we got a solid quality center that can start and come off the bench, but man, the trade speculation was going through the roof. However, I didn't really get too involved with it because looking at this roster, I'm going to say that the move added depth as opposed to anything else. Our front court, even with the addition of Reed, is still thin. You got Duren, who's 6'11". You got Stu, who's 6'9". Reed, who's 6'9". Those are certified big men. And that's it. That's all you have. Everybody else is like 6'7" and shorter that are small forward and other positions. No one's really a certified big man on this roster. I can throw you a bone and say, here, we'll just throw Tobias in there as well. Well, Tobias is 6'8", and he's more of a tweener. He's a small forward, power forward, who goes back and forth. It's not really a full-time power forward. And that's it. That's all you have for your depth at the front court. So people jumping up and down saying, Stu is going to be traded. Stu is going to be traded. He could be traded. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying he won't. But saying that this is the sign, I don't know, man. I think this is the sign that we added depth that we desperately needed. So even with Stu there and Reed there and Duren there, we're looking more well-rounded, if anything else. Now, you also have a couple other names that get brought up, like Bobby Klintman, who we talked about in the last video, who we drafted, and Tulu Smith. But those guys are not guaranteed to make the final roster. I'm not saying they're going to be cut by the Pistons, but they could have spent some time in the G League before they actually make the roster, where we see them on a regular basis. I don't think you're going to see them on a regular basis this season. Maybe if you watch some G League games you will, but not in a Detroit Pistons uniform. So with that, like I said, this may or may not be a move that brings in Brandon Ingram, but doing a quick examination of the current roster, I believe Reed is here for depth purposes, as opposed to replacing anyone. Most fans believe Stu is better suited for the power forward position. Him and Tobias alternating at the position could be a great tandem. And then you have Duren and Reed, who will alternate at center. If anything, it makes the roster look more well-rounded, if anything. Now, with all that said, these moves in the last 14, 11 days, 7 days, has got me feeling good about this team. I give this offseason so far a good solid B. Trajan seems committed to putting pieces around Cade immediately, which is phenomenal. We all love it. What I want to see out of this team is noticeable improvements this year. And again, this is not me saying I want to see a championship contending team or anything ridiculous of the sort. I want to see improvements. Can this team hit 20 wins? Can we hit 20 plus wins? Can we get to 30 wins? Does Cade play at least 85% of the season? Does he look like an all-star? Do the pieces we picked up this offseason look good around Cade? Or does it just look good on paper? I want to see improvements. I think the improvements that I pointed out, bar's low, okay, guys? Bar's low. But I think those are respectable and realistic. I'm not looking to, knock off the number one seed in the first round or anything like that. But man, I just don't want to be a 14-win team again. Man, these last 4 years have been brutal. For everybody that jumped up and down saying that, oh, the Pistons need a tank, we need a tank. I mean, you were hearing it for good 20, almost 20 years. We need a tank. It's the only way to rebuild. Well, you got your tank. You got a lot of tank. And I'm glad Piston fans in the recent year or so have really snapped out of it. Like, this tanking thing, trusting the process. It's not fun. It really sucks. So, it feels like the Pistons are headed in the right direction for some wins. And that's what I want to see. And I think Trajan's doing a decent job this offseason. I give him a solid B. I give this offseason a solid B. I think we will see those noticeable changes, providing everybody stays healthy. And with that said, we do got Summer League coming up tomorrow. And we will see how guys like Ron Holland, Bobby Klintman, even Tulu Smith, some other names too. We may even see Sasser out there as well. We'll play with, I would say, amongst their peers, right? Yeah, amongst their peers, and see how they play against other G Leaguers and rookies. And we'll see what we actually have in Ron Holland finally. There's been a lot of talk about him. And we'll see if he's meets the hype that certain people are giving him. I'm definitely looking forward to it. So with that wraps up your news. So until next time we run it back, this was your news shot. I'm out. Peace.